Now, as part of our look at interviewing, we talked about just briefly about interviewing data. So let's talk a little bit about data mining and how we can find information that will serve our stories well. You know, data is, there's just a ton of stories that exist in data. If we want to look at the context for bigger stories about what things mean, where they really come from, where the evidence is, all of that is going to come through this kind of reporting of data. And what we're looking for is to look at records that will support a particular story. So if we see a trend happening in crime, for example, we get a bunch of crime alerts on campus and we think, oh my God, there's just a ton of crime taking place on campus. Well, what we need to do is look at the data and say, okay, well, actually what's really happening are small, thefts from cars. So although there's a lot of reports, there's very few major crimes that are taking place, and that's a much different story that we could tell. So the data is going to help us see context for things. Now, advanced Google search is a great way to find data on things. You can talk directly with data people. There's all kinds of offices that deal specifically with data on campus and off. And really the goal is to start asking for databases and information that will help you get all of the records that will let you see a bigger issue. So if you want to get crime data, you're going to go to the FBI, or you're going to go to the police department and start requesting data from certain periods of time. You need to make sure that it's narrow enough that you can actually get your story. If you ask for all the crimes that have been committed on campus over the last 10 years, that's a lot of data. So think about what it is that you really want and what your story really is. Try to know the lingo and the format and the file types, whether you want a comma delineated file or what exactly you want your file to come in. And we're going to do an exercise on this in class to get a little bit more familiar with it. Now, a lot of people will talk about Excel like it's a database. In fact, databases are not Excel, and Excel is not a database. What Excel does is it interprets the data. It'll use math and trigonometry functions in order to help you analyze the data. The best thing about Excel, you can do up to 1,000,000 rows of data, and you can do all sorts of filtering. So, I did a story on home births in the state of Ohio. I wanted to filter out counties that had a high Amish population because that may skew, conventional women having home births, because Amish have quite a few home births. So your ability to kind of sort through and look at the data in different ways will really help you start to see stories. There's different data types, so I want you to look at our iTunes U data page to see the handouts on data mining from investigative reporters and editors. That'll help you see the different types. Keep in mind, one of the great ways to determine whether or not there's a story here is percentage of change, and we do that with the formula of new. So we do the new minus the old divided by the old times 100, and that equals the percentage of change. You can also extract from a PDF, so if someone sends you data in a PDF, there's a program called Able to Extract. If you go there, you can extract that data and be able to put that into Excel file. If you don't see the data, ask for it. You don't necessarily, you can certainly start on websites and looking at databases on websites, especially governments, but you can contact the government office directly and say, hey, Vital Statistics, I need to get records on this, and they'll be able to provide that for you. So here's 4 steps to making a great data story. First thing, digitize everything. Upload PDFs, create a Google Doc, get involved in scanning, make sure that you've got it digital. You don't want to have stuff on paper and stuff in digital. You want to make sure everything can be put into the same repository. You also want to dig for the data. So, it doesn't have to really be complicated. Here's some sites that I've given you that have some great data sets. And you can just start to look through those data sets and look for stories, or you can have a story and then get a data set to see, what evidence you have to support it. So here's some examples. I love USA Spending, where the government's spending all of our money. This enigma.io has data sets produced by governments and universities. Data.gov, great information, got census data. You can look all through there and really enterprise your own stories from there. Think about the chronology of it, create a timeline, start to see the relationships, try to develop some sort of quick reference, include your sources so that you know where you can go back if you need additional information. And then remember, nobody reads data. They read stories that are augmented by data. So we need to identify the stories and tell them, and then support the stories with numbers. So you don't want to throw a bunch of numbers, certainly in the lead of your story, even the body of your story. You want to show real examples of real people and how this data can support what it is that you're trying to share.